spent the last 2 weeks binge watching One Piece and found 30 of the most dark secrets in the show, starting off with the secret behind the original Whitebeard pirate's Jolly Roger. You see, in the early days of One Piece during the Alabasta arc, we first saw the Whitebeard's logo tattooed on the back of Ace. And it didn't look as you might think. This was how the original logo looked. Don't worry, in Japan this symbol isn't as dark as it is in the West. Oda later changed it to this. If you think this was dark, then let me tell you about the one time Big Mom ate her own mother. There's a tragic incident in Big Mom's backstory that no one talks about. On her 15th birthday, Big Mom ate a ton of food as usual, but was still hungry. So she accidentally ate her own mother, thinking she was food. Incredible how Oda has managed to hide some pretty dark secrets in the show. Speaking of Oda, we may need to pray for his safety. He works 7 days a week and only gets 3 hours of sleep a night in order to produce 1 manga chapter per week. He even claimed that if he were to die someday soon, he would want to die while he's writing the One Piece. His dedication is truly next level. But Oda's dedication comes nowhere near Whitebeard's level of dedication. In the fight with the Kainu in Marineford, you might think only his mustache got melted off. But what actually happened is way darker. In the manga, what actually happened was that half of Whitebeard's face was melted off. One Piece can get pretty dark sometimes. Someone you probably wouldn't think of as a dark character is Sanji. But let me tell you, the anime has censored some pretty crazy Sanji scenes. Remember this girl was kidnapped and the Straw Hats tried saving her? Well, during this arc in the manga, Sanji is caught asking Nami this. When I read the manga, I was in shock after reading that. Luckily, this was changed in the anime to him getting furious over people treating a lady this way. Let's just say I prefer the less dark version of Sanji. You probably knew that Oda has drawn what the Straw Hats will look like in the future, but what you probably didn't know is that Oda has drawn what would happen in a dark timeline as well. This is Luffy in the dark timeline. He didn't even become the king of pirates. Zoro, on the other hand, looks way worse in the dark timeline. Let's just say neither of them achieved their dreams. Speaking of dreams, there's a pretty crazy connection between dreams and why Luffy doesn't kill his enemies. The reason for why Luffy doesn't kill his enemies is because he believes that destroying their dreams is something way worse than death. Buggy, on the other side, is not so scared of killing people. He doesn't even show mercy to his crewmates. In this scene that was only shown in the manga, Buggy decides to end one of his crew members after choking him because he thought the poor crew member had insulted his nose. I did not think Buggy was this cruel. If you don't want Buggy to demolish you as well, make sure to press the red subscribe button. When people think of pirates, they mostly think of One Piece. But did you know that pirates actually exist? They exist in the South China Sea and off the coast of Somalia, as well as in other parts of the world. The Somali pirates seem to like One Piece because one of their ships had the Jolly Roger of Shank's crew from One Piece. On the topic of real-life pirates, do you remember the time when Blackbeard gained the powers of Gura Gura no Mi, which gave him the ability to create earthquakes? After the release of this episode, Japan actually suffered one of its most destructive natural disasters of all time. An earthquake with a magnitude of 9.0 happened on the Pacific coast of Tohoku, which triggered a massive tsunami. Do you remember the time when Oda drew weapons as humans? You see, in SBS volume, Oda was asked how Zoro's swords would look if they were humans, and Oda delivered. This is how Wado Ichimonji, Shisui, and Sandai Kitetsu will look as humans. Oda also said that each weapon has its own personality. These were only the first 11 facts, and from here on out, things will get a lot darker. Trust me. Like when Oda first released the early designs for the Straw Hats, everyone was shocked, especially the way Nami and Chopper were designed. I mean, just look at them. Their designs were way darker. Chopper has a cigarette in his mouth and looks way more human, a lot less cute. And Nami is half robot. She has a mechanical arm and a giant axe. Every One Piece fan's dream right now is probably to know the ending of this masterpiece, and only 2 people in the entire world know it. One of them, of course, being Oda himself, and the other one being Hinata Fujinami, a kid from Japan who was suffering from lung cancer. He got the chance to make a wish from the Make-A-Wish Foundation, where he asked Oda if he could tell him how One Piece would end, and Oda personally visited him to reveal the One Piece ending in private. Another pretty dark Easter egg I'm sure you noticed is the secret Joker reference in One Piece. Rocinante's act of burning down a hospital where doctors refused to treat Law was similar to a scene from The Dark Knight where the Joker burned down a hospital. I bet you didn't notice this one. We all know how much Sanji loves smoking, but have you ever wondered where this all started? You see, in the manga, Sanji develops his habit while still a young child working at the Baratier restaurant. Zeff, of course, tells him to stop, but Sanji insists that smoking will transform him into a man. This was likely taken out of the anime since they didn't want kids seeing it. Speaking of Sanji's addiction, did you know what his favorite cigarette brand is? Well, Oda revealed it in an SBS that Sanji smokes cigarettes from the brands King Ground and Death. Kids, if you're watching this, don't you dare touch a cigarette. Ichiro, Oda, and Ace both celebrate their birthdays on the same day, which falls on New Year's Eve. But the sad part is that one of them is dead. Moving on to this weird guy. Did you know that he's the only person in One Piece connected to all 3 major organizations in the manga? Most characters are connected to 1 or 2 different organizations. The only person connected to the pirates, the Revolutionary Army, the world government at the same time is Bartholomew Kuma. I thought only his name was weird. On the topic of names, have you ever wondered where Chopper's name came from? from? Well, Dr. Herlick revealed to Chopper that he was named Tony Chopper because he's a reindeer with fine antlers that could chop down trees. We all know that Katakuri loves to eat donuts, and you might not think that's dark, but trust me, it gets dark. Have you ever noticed the scarf he wears around his mouth? Well, the reason for it is to cover the fact that he tore his mouth open when he tried fitting as many donuts as possible in it. One Piece somehow managed to make donuts dark. The incredible handwork of Oda is the reason we're able to watch such a masterpiece of a show. He works on One Piece day and night along with his other editors, but the sad reality is that these men actually have to give up everything for this. As he once said, they need to be ready to, and I quote, die for One Piece if they want to work with him. I'm pretty sure Oda wasn't joking when he said that. And the dark secrets don't end there, because One Piece's 4Kids version has made some pretty dark changes to the show. Like the time they decided to remove guns in the anime completely. I guess 4Kids thought the guns were a bit too violent, but they could have at least changed it to something that makes sense. Like in this scene where Helmeppo is threatening Kobe with a gun, they changed it to this. What even is this? They also changed every other gun shown in the show to toy guns instead. I guess that makes a little more sense. Something that makes absolutely no sense, however, is 4Kids' decision to change this kid's food. In the early days of One Piece, there's a scene where this little girl gives rice balls to Zoro, and apparently 4Kids thought this scene was too dark for little kids to see, so they decided to change it from rice balls to cookies. 4Kids really ruined their reputation with the 4Kids One Piece, but they even went as far as changing Sanji's cigarette to something less dark. They decided to change it to a lollipop of all things. I guess I can somewhat understand this, but still. 4Kids might be trying to make the anime less dark, but there's actually a death in One Piece that was actually made far worse than the 4Kids version. You remember the adopted mother of Nami, Belle-Mare? In the Japanese version of the One Piece anime and manga, Belle-Mare is shot in the head by Arlong, but in the 4Kids dub, she's imprisoned for life and ends up dying a way slower death in prison all alone, which I think is way darker than the original version. And 4Kids aren't the only one that have censored moments in the show, because even the normal anime has censored some of the darker manga moments. We all know about Bartolomeo's obsession with Luffy and the lengths he's willing to go for him. Like the time this guy in the anime insulted Luffy and Bartolomeo got so angry that he decided to grab his tongue. This may not seem like anything serious until you read the manga. In the manga, Bartolomeo grabs his tongue and slices it. Crazy how far Bartolomeo is willing to go. But trust me, Owner Zeff went even further. Remember this scene in the anime where Owner Zeff loses his leg trying to save Sanji from drowning? Yeah, this great moment in the anime actually took a pretty dark turn in the manga. In the manga, Owner Zeff chops off his own leg in order to survive starvation. Owner Zeff was definitely hungry, but these guys must have been hungrier because why else would they be pointing forks at Sanji? Remember this scene? Well, this scene in the manga was way worse. You see, when Don Krieg's men were starving, Sanji decided to make food for them, but the Baratier employees didn't agree. So instead of pointing kitchen equipment like in the anime, they pulled out guns instead. Maybe they were hungry as well. Zoro was also hungry, but not for food, for blood. Back in the arc with the two giants, Zoro, Nami, and Vivi are being held hostage by Mr. 3. In order to escape the wax statue, he decides to cut his legs off to try and free himself. In the anime, this wasn't that bad of a scene, since he barely managed to cut anything before Usopp and Luffy arrived. In the manga, however, things are not the same, because he actually manages to cut half of his leg off before Luffy and Usopp arrive. This isn't the only dark fact about Zoro, because when he was trying to save this little girl from Helmeppo's wolf, things turned dark fast. Well, in the anime, this scene didn't seem that bad since Zoro just throws a chair at the wolf, but in the manga, this scene takes a very dark turn. Instead of just throwing a chair at the wolf, Zoro ends its life. One Piece definitely has some very dark facts hidden in the show, but it's nothing compared to these crazy mistakes you probably missed in the show.